All right.
If it's good enough for the president, it's good enough for me. Okay, enough. This is the state of the Apple speech thing, but I'm not going to do that until the end, and if we run out of time, that's the part I'm going to skip because the other stuff is way more interesting. You know that Apple's doing well, right? Yeah. All right, so that's what I'll spend 15 minutes proving later if we have time. Otherwise, I just want to stick to the cool stuff. So before I do anything, the first thing I like to always do when I do one of these shows is find out a little about who I'm speaking to. So I have some questions for you. First, new to the Apple world, 2 years or less as an Apple person. Anybody? All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, how did it feel leaving the dark side? Are you happy here? Most Apple people are very happy. You know why? Because their stuff just works. I used to have a t-shirt that said, I'm a smug, virus-free, Mac-using son of a... But I thought that that was like painting a target on my forehead. I stopped. All right. Notebook, desktop, or both? Notebook only? Desktop only? One of each or more? My kind of peeps. Yeah, you need both. You know, you need that big setup for editing video at home, and you need the little one for on the road. iPod, iPhone, iPad. Let's do these one at a time. Who owns one or more iPods? All right, iPhones. Good. iPad? Oh, well, we'll talk about the iPad, the new iPad, the free iPad. What? Any Mac? Who owns a Mac? Who owns a PC? Oh. And isn't the shame? Who has 2 out of 4 of those? 3 out of 4? 4 or more? Version of Mac OS 10. Lion? Leopard of some sort? Tiger? Mountain lion? Mountain lion, developer preview. Some other cat? Feral cat? I discovered a bug in iOS 5, and so Apple is going to name the next operating system after me. After Mountain Lion comes Bobcat. All right, who doesn't know or doesn't care what operating system their Mac runs? Good. That's important. All right, who has fewer than 4 or fewer gigabytes of RAM in their computer? Okay, look around. These are the people who need RAM upgrades.
Or computer upgrades.
Does Windows still suck?
Yes.
I figure you've used it more recently than me. I have Parallels or one of those things on that laptop, but I can't remember the last time I've opened Windows because it makes me feel creepy. Only if I have to. I almost had to because of this Quicken fiasco with Lion. Well, the Quicken that works with Lion came out yesterday or 2 days ago, and I paid some bills with it, and it appears to work. So crisis sort of averted, but I am going to switch to something else because, well, how do I put this politely? Intuit sucks. There isn't, I don't know. I'm looking at MoneyDance, iBank, C-Finance. I'm even looking at Quicken Essentials, although I think that because it's an Intuit product, it's already out of the running. But I'll look at it because I do that for you, gentle reader. Have you heard about the iPad 3?
Yes.
No. No!
The
It's
new
the new iPad.
iPad.
There is no iPad 3. Well, officially, it's the new iPad. And so I was, All right, so Apple announced it last Wednesday at an invitation-only event in San Francisco. Some of you may have watched my live blog and photographs from the event. I was invited. Yes? I won't tell you who I had to kill for that. I was in San Francisco for approximately 33 hours. I did live blog the entire presentation from the Yerba Buena Center on macobserver.com. And last but not least, the nice folks at Cult of Mac made a movie. In 90 seconds, I can show you what took me 33 hours, okay? So here's the movie from the Cult of Mac.
Good morning, the post-PC revolution. This is incredible. iOS, 315 million devices. Siri is your best friend. iOS 5.1, new Apple TV. Eddie?
Thanks, Tim. It's full 1080p TV shows, the iTunes Music, Netflix.
$99 iPad. iPad is everywhere. They responded, iPad, 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 iPad. Competitive tablet stretched out. Smartphone, more amazing than the iPad 2, the new iPad. Phil?
Want to know about the new iPad? The Retina display, 3.1 million pixels, A5X chip, quad-core and eyesight camera, 5 megapixel, that's Derby, world's largest dog. HD video recording, voice dictation, next generation wireless, 10 hours of battery life, amazingly thin, amazingly light, $499. March 16th, mind-blowing, amazing, incredible iPad, iWork, free update, GarageBand, and iMovie. Great new features. Play just like smash it, and no, a new update, movie trailer as well, iPhoto, amazing. Edit your photo. Randy?
Thanks, Phil. Very customizable. Multi-touch control map. iPhoto.
Thank you, Randy. This is really huge. Tim?
The amazing new iPad. We are just getting started. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
So there you go. Cost me $1,100. I had to stay in the hotel. I had to fly back and forth. And you got everything I got in 90 seconds. That's pretty much it. Any questions? I do have one comment. Okay, so I am one of the few people, really, who held one and touched one and saw one in real life up close and personal. Okay, and here's what I have to say about it. How many of you own an iPad already? Okay, for all of you, as soon as you see one of these, you're going to want it. The screen is that good. Now, how many of you don't have an iPad? All right, now for all of you, as soon as you see one of these, you're going to want it. Basically, what I think is everyone's going to want one, and it looks like the price of the old ones has hardly gone down. I mean, if you look on Craigslist or eBay, the one that Apple is selling new for $399 is still fetching $300 plus everywhere else, used. So they're holding their value. I don't know how long that'll last. Anybody want to buy an iPad too? I got a couple of them actually. I'd say somebody said, where's the best place to sell them? Good question. I've had really good luck with Craigslist because it's local. People can meet you at Starbucks. You don't have to pack stuff up and ship it anywhere. They can see that it works. You can see that they're legitimate. You can get cash money instead of PayPal or some nebulous money flying through the ether into some account somewhere, and no shipping. So if you can sell it on Craigslist, that's usually the easiest, fastest, and cheapest way. eBay, you may get better money for it, but it's more trouble. You've got to compose an ad, you've got to do nice pictures, you've got to write stuff. With Craigslist, iPad 2, good condition. $250. Phone number, your phone starts ringing instantly. So I sell a lot of my old gear on Craigslist because it's convenient. If I have extra, now I have a family, so there's usually not extra stuff. We have the trickle-down effect, It's like my kid has a 3rd generation iPod Touch. My wife has a 4th generation. I have a 5th generation. I have an iPhone 4S. My wife has a 4. My kids have 3 GSs. And as far as Macs go, well, I'm pretty tough on them. So they don't get handed down. We just buy them cheap Macs and meat. Good. So I was going to do some smart lion tricks, and I started looking around and decided that if you just Google lion tricks, you'll find all of the ones I was going to show you and more. And if not, I've made a little list of URLs that I will leave with Timothy or somebody I've got on my hard disk. All the URLs for all of the things that I would have put into the lion segment of this show, but won't, because in the interest of time, you're better off doing this at home in front of your computer. So that and all the other products I'm going to mention are also on there. There's URLs so that you can look at these products that I'm going to talk about when I get done with Lion. First, I made a Lion recovery disk with the Lion Recovery Disk Assistant. You should all do this too. What I did was, I have this little USB drive. That is it. Next to it, that's just a pen. It's not a giant pen. It's just a pen and a little notebook. And the 16 gigabyte USB thing is about the size of my fingernail. I mean, if it wasn't tied to my keychain, I'd lose it. But that's a complete bootable Lion install setup right there. Lion goes bad, mine or yours, I just pull out my keys and stuff it in the USB port, and I can reinstall or repair any Lion disk. And that's on my keychain. So wherever I go, my keys are with me, right? So I always have a Lion startup disk that's got like disk utility and can repair a disk, can reinstall stuff. And it's free from Apple. The little 16 gig USB stick wasn't free. But the software to make the recovery disk, Apple's got it. Just search for Lion recovery disk. And you just basically click a couple buttons and it makes a disk for you. And it's a good thing to have if you don't already have one. Lion has a built-in recovery partition. It's a good thing, but sometimes it goes awry. And sometimes people don't know it's there, and sometimes you can't boot from it for some reason. So having this as a backup is a really good idea. Lion changed a lot of things about the way macOS worked, most notably the fact that scrolling is now backwards. Or frontwards, depending on how you look at it. People who started with Lion think that the old way is backwards, but there's lots of little things that have changed, and if you're a longtime Mac user, some of them are annoying. For a while, I was looking for individual solutions to change the behaviors back to the way they were. Then I found this little free app called Lion Tweaks. Like Apple hid the library folder in your user folder. Did you notice that your library folder isn't there in Lion? It's there, it's just not there. Why? Well, because you might do something terrible to it if you could see it. Now it appears in a menu if you press the Option key, and it's still right where it was. This turns it visible again for people like me who use the library regularly. I'm always looking in there for what's causing a problem, or what's loading that I don't want to load, or what isn't loading that should be loading, or what isn't loading its dictionaries, or whatever. All that stuff lives in the library. If you're a geek like me, you use the library all the time, so you can turn it back on. You can remove the stupid mail window animations. You can disable spelling correction that keeps popping up if you don't like it. You can change the iCal leather back to aluminum, which is might not sound like much, but I think the leather is really annoying and ugly. So all of this stuff is stuff that the behaviors changed in Lion, and sometimes not for the better. All of these things can be done in the terminal, but they all require typing a bunch of stuff precisely, and a lot of people don't like using the terminal. This is a real easy way to turn all these things on and off for free. It's got a donate button, you might notice. The kid that wrote this is, I put it in my notes, he's a 16-year-old Norwegian kid. So send them $5 or $10. These are the kind of kids we want to encourage, right? So explore Lion system preference panes. Lots of new stuff in the system preferences. For example, in the trackpad, these are movies. So if you tap on one of these, it'll start to show you a movie of what that means. So if you don't know what swipe between full screen apps looks like, watch to the right when you click on it. It'll show you a movie. Another one, text. So anybody use something like Type It For Me or Text Expander, anything that lets you do shortcuts? So the idea is if you type a phrase, word, or something else every day a lot of times, you can type a shortcut for it. For example, when I type BLC and then space, my Mac will type Bob LevItus at boblevitus.com, my email address, which is a lot more keystrokes than BLC. So I used to use third-party software to do this, but now it's built into Mac OS X. But what's really cool is the same exact system is built into your iPhone and your iPad. So you can now do these shortcuts on all of your devices for free, and all you do is type the little shortcut. So I've got another one that's TD, types today's date. TT, types today's time. HA, home address. SIN, sincerely yours, Bob LevItus, blah, 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 the whole signature line. All that stuff is done with these shortcuts, and I've cut down my typing from thousands of words a day to thousands of words a day, but fewer thousands. It's kind of hidden away, and then I thought I would at least mention Mountain Lion coming this summer with all new features inspired by the iPad. So when I was testing it, I kept going like this on the screen, trying to swipe stuff. It turns out Macs don't have touch screens.
Yeah.
But have you ever found yourself touching the screen on one of your Macs and wondering why nothing's happening? So when I see some of this stuff, like the Mountain Lion has reminders, just like your iPhone and your iPad do, and it looks the same, and then I'm trying to scroll by touching the screen, and my daughter walks in and goes, "Dad, it's not an iPad." Well, yeah, I should know that. It's got a 27-inch screen. Definitely not. But a lot of new features. Messages. You can download this if you're using Lion. There's a beta of this that runs in Lion. Unifies all your messages, replaces iChat, does everything iChat does, so audio, video, screen sharing, but it also does unlimited messages to iPhones and iPads and iPod Touches using the Messages app. So I get my text messages on my computer now. So my kids text me. They don't know how to talk on a phone. Kids don't know that phones are used for voice, you know? They don't answer their phone, and they don't do voice. They type. And so now I can keep in touch with my kids from my desk. I don't have to find my phone and type on a little teeny keyboard. Not that I do that anyway. Siri does all of my typing for me now. My kids love it because I just send the messages even with the mistakes, and sometimes they're funny. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Notification Center. This is a really nice feature on your iPhone and your iPad. If you haven't noticed, you can take your iDevice and, well, once it's unlocked and lit up, and if you swipe down, you get the Notification Center. It shows you all of your messages, calendar appointments, reminders, etc. You can set that up in settings, and it's really nicely done on the phone. It really gives you a nice overview of stuff that's time sensitive or location sensitive, and all in one place. You don't have to look in messages and in phone and in calendar and every place else. It all shows up in one place, and you don't even have to open an app. You just swipe downward and then back up. So that's really nice, and on the Mac it's really nice because now all of my reminders are always presented in the same place, in the same way on all of my devices. Right now I get them in Notification Center here, but on my computer they live in Mail, and they live in Calendar, and they live in, well, wherever to-do items live. They kind of live sort of in Mail and sort of in your calendar, but all of it gets put together so you can see all at once. They haven't announced it yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mom Lion has Siri. So that you could say, what's my day look like? Which my favorite thing to do is Siri. What's my day look like? You have no appointments today. Oh, good. Then I'm going back to sleep, Siri. Thanks. She's awesome. She doesn't speak Scottish, though. There's a video on YouTube of a guy with a thick Scottish accent trying to talk to her. He's very frustrated. But she does speak Japanese now, I hear. Doesn't matter to me because I don't. Reminders. This is my favorite feature of iOS 5. Not just reminders. Reminders are an old thing. They were built into your calendar. You could make reminders for anything at any given time. But what on your iPhone or iPad, what you get that's new and exciting, two things. One is you can ask Siri to make a reminder for you. Remind me to call my mother when I get home. That's the second thing, is location-based reminders. You can say, remind me to do something at a certain place. Remind me to get milk when I leave the house. As soon as I've driven down my block, Siri says, hey, you're in your car. You need milk. All right, so that's awesome. I can have it say, get popcorn when I'm at HEB. It knows where HEB is. When I'm in the parking lot of HEB, it reminds me of things that I told it I need in the store. It keeps my grocery list for me. But the whole idea of being able to just put my phone up to my lips and say, remind me of this when or where, and have it do it is amazing. I have ADD. If I don't have lists of things to do, if everything isn't written down and mapped out, I get involved in something and forget everything else. You know, I've been known to work through meals. I've been known not to hear the phone ring. This, it's in front of me no matter where I go. I got my phone or my computer or my iPad or my iPod Touch. One of my Apple devices is always within arm's reach. And now this whole reminder ecosystem lives everywhere. It reminds me. Sometimes in my office when a reminder goes off, it's like, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, everything, they're all synchronized on the same clock. So when I have a 10 o'clock reminder, it goes off on whatever devices are enabled in the room. And they have different sounds, so I'm going, oh, that was the phone. Oh, that was the iPad. Oh, that was the touch. You know what I also like in iOS 5.1 is you can have different sounds for incoming messages. So it used to be you could only give ringtones. So I love ringtones. I've got my family, they all have their own ringtone. When my wife calls, it's Tupelo honey. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. When my daughter calls, it's Allison by Elvis Costello, because that's her name. When my son calls, Teenage Wasteland. My sister, little sister, won't you? My brother, he ain't heavy. So now, and what's great about that is I know who's calling without pulling the phone out of my pocket. That's good. But now they all have their own text sounds too. So I know who I can ignore. If I hear Teenage Wasteland during the day, I know my son is calling from school, hoping I'll answer some question for him so he can raise his hand and answer his class. So I know who to ignore. My default ringtone, Alice Cooper, Under My Wheels. Telephone is ringing. Because it is.
Trouble, man. Mine is Marvin Gaye.
It's fun, but if you didn't know it, you can now assign those sounds to people for their text messages or iMessage.
I knew that.
These are new features in Mountain Lion Game Center, stuff that is coming over from the iPad or the iPhone, and that'll be at the end of the summer.
Also AirPlay.
AirPlay from the computer to the Apple TV will be very cool. It doesn't work in the developer preview yet. I think it requires the new Apple TV, which won't be out till Friday, next Friday, a week from yesterday. So I'm going to try that. I love, in fact, we're going to talk, the first thing I'm going to talk about iPhone 4S and iOS 5 is AirPlay. It's the coolest thing. It's built into the new iPad and iPhone 4S's. And here's what it does. Here's what it does. So if you have an iPad 2 or an iPhone 4S, or a new iPad, I guess. Nobody has one of those yet, do they? Even I don't. I touched it though. So if you've got any of those devices running iOS 5 and you've got an Apple TV, you can mirror what's on your device screen to your Apple TV, which means that you can watch it on your big TV in the den without hooking anything up. You sit down on your couch and you look at your Photos app and you're looking at a slideshow of photos and you've got friends over and they're sitting next to you. And you're going, it's too here, look. No, you tap the little button and this is what it looks like. All of a sudden, I'm doing this with an iPad, but what's on your iPad, this is my iPad sitting on the coffee table in front of the 60-inch TV, which is showing you the same thing. Well, that's pretty cool just in general, but it's really cool for stuff like demos, like open the App Store. I mean, people can actually see that so that you can tell them what you're doing. Or, all right, now shut up and watch me drive. AirPlay has enabled features in games that are, in particular, very cool with AirPlay. This is a game called Real Racing 2. I see the map of the track, and there's the little yellow dot that tells me where I am. These are my stats. They tell me how fast I'm going and how many cars are in front of me. 16 out of 16 in this case. But up there on the big screen TV is the cockpit. And so that's where I see the car and the track, and all the sound comes out of my surround sound system, so it sounds like racing. And you sit there with your iPad in your hand going like that, and you see it on this big screen. Very cool. So you're going to see more and more of this because it's built right in. It doesn't require any hardware or wiring other than an Apple TV, which is this little teeny black box there for $99. And there's a close-up of what I'm seeing on the big screen TV. And yes, reminders, location-based reminders, notification center. I got ahead of myself and already told you how much I like that, but it's so great to be in the car and think of something I want to do when I get home. Remind me to check this website. Remind me to call this person. Remind me to do it when I get home. And Siri's got her own reminder sound. You know, it goes, it's a train whistle. Woo, woo! It gets my attention. It means, you said you needed to do something. Don't forget. So here's what that looks like. Here's some reminders on the notification center, which I pull down by swiping downward on the screen. And here's some reminders in the Reminders app. The camera in the iPhone 4S and in the new iPad, apparently it's the same camera optics, is the best camera I've ever used in a phone. And it's so good that I used to have a couple of point-and-shoot cameras that have more resolution and zoom lenses, but they're not SLRs, they're pocket cameras, little cameras. I don't ever use them anymore. In fact, I'm thinking it's time for Craigslist for a couple of them, because if I'm going to shoot with a small camera, I shoot with my phone. If I'm going to shoot something seriously, I bring my DSLR, my real camera. But I find I don't do that very often because the phone camera is so good. Yes?
Can you get any kind of a Zoom app for the video?
There are at least 2 or 3 clip-on lens packs. I've got one that doesn't have zoom. It has wide angle and a couple others that are good for video also. I suspect one of the companies makes a zoom of some sort that'll work with video. That is kind of a shortcoming, that you can't zoom video. But other than that, I went to a show the other night. I went to see a band, And I thought about bringing a camera, and I thought, I'll have my phone with me, I'll just shoot some there. And I shot a little bit of video, and the video came out really good. I mean, it really sounded pretty good, it looked pretty good. I posted it, people said, wow, that's impressive. What'd you use to shoot that? My iPhone. But not only is the camera better, there's a picture, just to show you. I made that. That was 17 hours of low and slow. I may not be a Texan, but I got here as fast as I could. And I'm learning your ways. That's brisket, and it was good. But the saturation, the color, the focus, the image quality, really, really good for a camera and a phone. Second feature is the camera on the unlock screen. So, and this in version 5.1, if you update to 5.1, you don't even have to do the double tap. If you have version 5.0 and you double tap the home button, you'll get that. So that lets you get to the camera without first going to the first page of apps and tapping the camera app. Much faster. Second, the volume up button now works as a shutter release, which is really nice because it's easier to press that by squeezing than to tap the screen without shaking the phone. So you can get a better picture by using this. All right, and then third, they've added a bunch of features to the Photos app for editing and improving your photos. For example, here's a photo that I took that's not very well composed. There's lots of garbage. About half of the photo is wasted underneath there, and the just composition isn't very good. The colors aren't very good, and I went at it with Photos app. I did a little cropping, and ultimately I ended up with a brighter, more saturated photo with a lot less wasted space. Your eye is drawn to the interesting stuff, and I did that all on the phone with Photos app. Now, as of a couple days ago, you can get iPhoto, which has a lot more of this stuff. But even if you don't buy iPhoto for $5, the Photos app now has cropping built in. It has rotation. It has instant enhancement. You can improve the contrast a little bit. Things like that used to require a third-party app are all built in now. Custom text tones, I told you about. One I didn't mention is custom vibration patterns. You can now create your own vibration pattern for people. So yeah, so if you want, you can give your spouse an SOS, beep beep beep, beep beep beep, beep beep beep. Or if you know Morse code, you can spell words or people's names, and your phone will vibrate out that pattern. You set those up in it's in settings for disabilities, accessibility, not disability, accessibility. So you can set your own vibration patterns. And I know people who do Morse code who have set a bunch of different patterns, and they can tell just by the way their phone is rattling on the table who it is. If they've got it in silent mode. Me, that was way too much work. First, tapping them in accurately, but more than that, learning Morse code. And then, of course, there's Siri. She's the girl with the little curl. When she's good, she's very, very good, and when she's bad, she's frustrating. But she's usually very, very good. In fact, I hardly ever type on my phone anymore. I mean, if it's more than about 2 words, I'll speak it because Siri is so good at deciphering what I say and turning it into text. She's as good as Dragon, maybe better. But she also is smart. She can do things like make an appointment, put it on my calendar, remind me of something at a certain time or place. I can say, this morning, do I need a raincoat in Dallas? Yes, it would be a good idea to take a raincoat today. So I took a raincoat. What's my day look like? Well, you are giving a presentation at 10 o'clock and you have tickets for a show tonight at 8 o'clock. It's great. Every morning, my first thing I do when my eyes open after coffee is, what's my day look like, Siri? And she's great. And there's stuff on my calendar, she tells me, but I don't even have to get to the office and open my eyes to find out what the day is. Yes, sir?
I don't have a Siri phone, I have the 4S or the 4, but I read in Macworld that there's a feature that's on by default you really have to turn off because of security breach.
Well, yes, but I've left it on because I actually, you're going to get my phone when you pry it from my cold dead fingers, you know? I've got a passcode on it.
Right.
The breach is I've got it set so that when I put it to my face, she kicks in. There's a raise to speak, and it bypasses the security to some extent. But you can't, if you've got a passcode on your phone, even if you do that.
Well, they're saying if you double click the home button and when you have a passcode, then it automatically enables Siri to send an email under your ID without having to enable passcode.
Yeah, she could. She could.
So,
Because when you raise it up to your face, even if it's locked, she'll start doing whatever she does. But like I said, the chances of you having my phone in your hand are slim and none. And there's a passcode. So I love the convenience of just going, remind me to eat barbecue before I leave Dallas. Thanks, sir. Yes?
Do you have to have the 4S to get Siri?
Yes, but there's apps that do Siri-like stuff. I just got another one. I don't know if it's still available. I think Apple may have pulled it down. It's called EVI. And it works on other iPhones. And it's very, very similar. It can't do all the things Siri can do, but it can do some. Drag and Go is another one that can do some of the things Siri can do. And then there's Drag and Dictation, which you can use to dictate text by voice. Even without Siri, you can get a lot of these benefits. And I've always loved the idea of voice translation, of dictation to a machine. Because, you know, in the old days, that's how executives did stuff. They had, well, it wasn't a machine. They had somebody come in and take dictation. Well, that's gone now, and I've never learned how to really do dictation. So I'm happier typing, but not on my phone. You know, if it's my phone, I'd really rather dictate if it's more than 2 or 3 words. And it's just been great since Siri came along. I can say, send a text message to my daughter. What should it say? Where the heck are you? Dinner is getting cold. Because, you know, they don't answer the phone. You can't call them. So using the Siri, especially for speech to text, has been just great. Somebody have a question over here? Yeah.
Do you know if there's some kind of conflict between Siri and VoiceOver? If you put that ear thing up to your ear, she doesn't always come on.
No, that's just a bug in Siri. She just doesn't always come on when you put it to your ear. Sometimes I have to open the setting and turn it on and off. Sometimes I have to lock my phone and unlock it once before Siri recognizes the skin of my face or whatever. So here's some of the stuff Siri can do. What's Apple's stock price? Wake me tomorrow at 7 a.m. Make a note that I spent $12. Search the web for Bora Bora. There's some more. Play a certain song. Send a message to a certain person. Set up a meeting. Remind me to call mom. How do I get home? Email Lisa about the trip. You know, things like that are great with Siri. So I was going to do this demo. I started recording a demo so you could hear it, and then I was listening to a radio show, and somebody did a way better job than I could. So,
Straight to you how it works. Siri, what's the weather like outside?
You know, you could just open the damn window.
Thanks, you know, I really enjoy, Siri, the fact that you have such a vivid personality.
At least one of us does.
So, we're trying this again. We'll show people how you're supposed to work. Could you make me a reservation, Siri, at a nice restaurant?
I assume that's for one?
No, Siri, this would be for 2.
Let me check with my friend eHarmony.
No, you don't. You don't need to do that. I am capable of finding my own date.
And yet, you are not capable of making your own reservation. I can tell, Siri, you're a little testy, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Whatever gets me out of your pants pocket.
Thank you, Siri. Talk to you later.
For those of you who don't know, that was Peter Sagal on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. So I started to do the same thing. I mean, it's not that hard to do. I'm not going to tell you the secret of making Siri's voice saying anything you want, but it's pretty easy to do. But it would have taken me all day. And his was funnier than the one I wrote anyway. So I just borrowed his. So I'm giving full credit to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. If you don't listen to it, well, it'll be over in 15 minutes. But you can get the podcast. Just download the podcast. It's probably the funnest news program ever. Once a week, Saturdays. What else did I have for the iPhone 4S? I've been quite fortunate, and for the most part, when I got the 4S and switched to iCloud, everything just worked for me. Others haven't been so fortunate from what I understand, and there's an ongoing issue with some people, mine comes and goes, with battery. So like my battery, okay, check it out. This morning I left the house at 6 o'clock and it was 100%. Now, I was using Navigon before in the car. It's at 50% at 10:15 a.m. By 2 o'clock, if I keep doing what I'm doing, it'll be empty. And it's, to some extent, it's a problem that exists in all iPhones. If you're using geographic services, if you're using some features, it will drain the battery much faster than if they're turned off. But this is a Mophie, this is their newest battery, 4,000 milliamps. This will recharge my phone 3 times, maybe 4, or recharge my phone once and my iPad mostly. It won't do a full charge of an iPad, but it'll charge it from 0 to 80 or 90% with one charge, or give it enough to do something. It's USB, it doesn't have a dock connector cable. You use your own cable, which means I can also use this battery to recharge my headset, recharge my speakers. Anything that's got a USB recharging cable, I can recharge with this one device that I carry in my pocket, but mostly it'll recharge the phone 4 times. And it's the same size as an iPhone, fits in the back pocket, it's all solid state, there's no moving parts or anything. And that's my solution is, hey, battery life just isn't happening. And really, you can do all these things, turn things off and turn them back on, turn Bluetooth off when you're not using it, turn Wi-Fi off when you're, but who the heck's gonna do that? Plus, Siri doesn't know how to do that stuff. If I could say, Siri, turn off Bluetooth, Siri, turn Bluetooth on, then I would do that and save a little battery every day, but I can't, so I leave that stuff on, and my battery's usually dead by midday. So, I was really concerned about it, and some people apparently have it way worse than me. I talk to people sometimes who say that it goes from 100% to 10% by lunchtime. I don't know what they're doing, but maybe they're talking the whole time, but even so, I do have a couple of bones to pick with iOS 5 and iPhone 4. The first one is the headset. Give me a break, Apple! That same crappy, uncomfortable white headset? Still? That's just sad. I mean, Apple, for the most part, the box that you get is beautiful, the device is beautiful, the presentation is beautiful, and then there's these sucky, uncomfortable. How many of you have perfectly round ear holes? I thought not. I mean, how can they expect those to fit comfortably in your ear when they're perfectly round and you're not? It's just sad that they haven't done something about it. And then power management and battery life. What the heck is draining my battery? So I did some research, and what I eventually came to find is that nobody knows what the magic thing is that triggers fast battery drain. There are things we know will cause your battery to drain faster, anything that uses a radio. So your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, talking on the telephone, using your web, downloading files, streaming video, all that stuff that uses any air will make the battery drain faster than if it's in your pocket sleeping. But other than that, nobody has figured out, to this day, what the magic thing is that makes some people's drain by noon and some people's, you know, people say I charge my phone every 2 days. They probably don't use it. I mean, it sits in their pocket. Mine will go 2 days if I don't do anything with it, but what's the point?
I went to the Apple store 2 days ago, and they made me do a restore on everything I own.
Yeah.
It didn't.
No, that's the thing is, it may help.
It's a lot of trouble.
It may help a little, and sometimes it does. Resetting your phone to factory condition and then restoring all your stuff back to it. It's a big pain in the butt, and it doesn't usually fix the battery issue. It doesn't usually fix anything, but they make you do it before they will. Well, before they'll consider exchanging your hardware. But so far, nobody. Well, the bottom line is this here. Chris ended his story with, "I largely leave it to you. What I know is this: the combination of crash reports helped me determine that I had an issue with contact syncing that caused my phone to drain, but wiping the phone and syncing syncing via iCloud solved the problem, yet it did so only the second time, not the first. I've seen this happen where you do the same thing twice and the second time it works." But the point is that nobody can come to consensus. There's no magic bullet to swallow that will fix it for everybody. There's little tips that we can give you that'll make it somewhat better, but basically there are things going on under the hood of the phone that can cause the battery to drain very rapidly, and we don't know what those are or how to turn them off just yet.
Is there any downside, to just charging throughout the day? Like I keep a charger in my office, a charger in my car.
And I do too. And actually these batteries, today's modern generation of batteries, in the old days we were taught it's bad to top off your batteries, that you want them to be exercised, you want to drain them and refill them. Well, the same is still true for your lithium or whatever.
Lithium ion.
Ion polymer ones. It's still the same. It's a good idea to drain it at least once a month, let it expire, let it go dark, and then charge it up to, use it completely and then fill it completely. Once a month is good for your battery. It'll extend its lifespan, and it will keep its capacity higher than if you never do that. That said, the effect of plugging in all throughout the day and topping off is very minimal now. And in fact, most of these batteries don't consider it a full charge. So if you plug in and do 10%, it takes 10 of those to make one full cycle. And these batteries are rated for 500, 1,000, 1,500 full cycles, which for me would be, 11 plug-ins a day. I have a charger in the car, a charger on my desk. If I'm near power, I plug my phone in. My kids don't get this. They're always running out of juice by mid-afternoon. I say, "Don't you have a charger in the car?" "Yeah, but I always forget to use." Well, there's your problem. It's like if I see juice, the first thing I do is plug my stuff into juice so that when I leave, it's as fully charged as it can be. And that's really my best suggestion is, car chargers cost $15. A battery costs anywhere from 50 or 30 to 100. An extra charger for home costs $20. If you use your phone all the time, you should have one of each. And wherever you are, if you've got juice, you should be rejuicing. Rejuice! Come to the temple and rejuice the temple of Apple stuff.
I've got Mac Pro, Time Warner cable, and I love the new Lion Mail, but iCloud is really pretty slow on that. You run into that? I mean, I keep a lot of messages, but the address book and mail, sometimes I really have to wait for it to react to my cursor.
I think that the servers for iCloud are still not quite there yet. And I think a lot of things, including Siri, by the way, which is using Apple servers, when you talk to Siri, it sends your request to an Apple server somewhere via either cellular or Wi-Fi. And the big computers in Apple's arsenal somewhere do the work and then send it back to you. So a lot of this stuff just depends on the load. Also, Time Warner, I can tell you from experience, their cable, whichever tier you buy, it slows down at certain times of day. For example, look about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the kids get home from high school. All right? So I'll get 25 megabits per second download all day long, and at 4 o'clock it drops down to 15 or 12 because my whole neighborhood is lit up with kids with chat windows open doing video. And what happens is your neighborhood has one pipe coming in, and all of the cable in your neighborhood comes out of the one spout. The more people that are using some of that stream, the less there is for you. So sometimes it's Time Warner where there's congestion. Sometimes that's the slowdown. But mostly I think Apple is still building out their servers.
Sounds like they're building another one on the West Coast, and I think that's the deal too.
Well, I think that right now, I think that the reason we didn't get Siri on the new iPad, we just got voice dictation, is because Apple is already being crushed by the server loads from Siri on iPhone 4S's alone. I think that they need to build a lot more infrastructure before they can expand this out. Also, iCloud is still beta. You know, it's not really official till the summer, when they turn off Mobile Me, which will be sad. Anyway, so 171 pages of iPhone 4S battery life discussion up in the Apple support communities. If you're interested, you could read all 171 pages and still not find an answer, because I did. And what I found was there's lots of answers that work some of the time for some people, but there is no universal, this is what's wrong, or this is how to fix it. So if you're getting
raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings, these are a few of my favorite things.
I did that manually. I have to time it just right, or the words don't spew out at the same time. So now this is the part of the show where I show you stuff that I've reviewed or used that I'm in love with that I think is highly recommendable. You know, I look at 100 products, hundreds of products a year. And out of those, I review probably 30 or 40 in my column or at Mac Observer. And out of those, a year later, I'm probably still using 5 or 10. And stuff that I've used for more than a year or two, I consider very special. You know, if something lasts more than a year or two in my life, that means that nothing better has come along, and that's kind of how I decide what the stuff that's really proven itself over time. So here are a few of my favorite things. This is one that I've just gotten into recently. I'm going to ask your indulgence for about 10 minutes. It's called Boinks TV, and what it is it's a television production studio in a box. And I want to show you a couple things. I'm working on a new project called Bob LevItus.tv show. The Bob LevItus.tv show. And I've always wanted to do a TV show. I did one in 1992 called Mac Today for 13 weeks. It was syndicated. I got it on in over 100 markets and lost my ass. Because producing TV is very expensive, and it's supported by advertising, and in 1992, it was good enough to get broadcast, you needed to use a studio that cost $250,000 or $500,000. You couldn't do desktop video and get it on the air on a real TV station. Well, that's not a problem anymore. Your MacBook Pro is totally capable of editing high-definition video and delivering it to a TV station and having them go, this is beautiful. For, you know, no money. I mean, you could do it with iMovie that came on your machine. I'm going to use Final Cut Pro because I really like it, but you can do quality work. But Boinks TV is something completely different.
Those titles, and
this
yes,
is a
there I
little
am.
demo of Boinks TV.
Now, right down here under my lips, I'll bring in my sexy lower third that tells you that you're watching whatever this is called, the demo.
See my spinning globe?
This is the Bob News. It's just a little running text box, and I've got the real.
This used to cost thousands of dollars a minute to create in a studio, all these kinds of effects.
And I can even turn on the little clock to waste a little more screen space. And every time I've got the little globe spinning, and that's so that when I want to tease, like,
just click those red buttons to turn things on and off in my show.
And after the break, Amusing help menus. Oh yes, all that and more.
That's a
when
great
we
help
return.
menu. It's got the lyrics to the song Help. So I'm going to ask you to indulge me. This is another piece that I created with.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is actually the way I hoped the show would open. And this is what a second.
Action Movie FX is a free app for the iPhone and other iDevices with cameras from producer J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Productions. You know them. They're the people who make TV shows like Alias, Lost, and Fringe, and movies like Star Trek, Super 8, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which I just saw, and it was good. And so is this app. It's not just good, it's very good. I've bought many apps like this, of this ilk, let's say, ones that let me deface photos or movies that I shoot with my iPhone. And Action Movie FX is as good as anything I've ever bought and better than most of them. Action Movie FX makes it easy to add big budget special effects to your videos that you shoot with your iDevices. Or, let me put it another way, you get to blow stuff up in fun and interesting ways, like this. And when I ran out of normal size targets, I started inflicting movie effects mayhem on my son's poor toy car. What can I say? It's fun. Action Movie FX comes with 3 different effects.
All right,
Missile attack, car smash, and
So that was one thing that I did with it, and I had another segment. I think I'll show it as short.
And now, here's a little segment we like to call As Seen on YouTube. You know the James Bond theme song, the James Bond music? You know, that's the one. Has some lyrics? Yes, indeed. Check this out. It's called His Name is James Bond, as seen on YouTube.
My name is James Bond and I love to get faster than cause I'm a smooth and I got my love from then I back to London on my jetpack. That's how I roll.
So that's the kind of stuff I want to do on my TV show. The point that I wanted to make there, though, is that I did that all on my laptop with Boinks TV. All those effects with all the stuff that had titles or colors or bars or anything that wasn't video from a camera came out of this Boinks TV app and was easy to do. If you've tried to do this stuff in Photoshop or Final Cut Pro, it takes some know-how. This thing, you basically just type what you want and it's all template driven. So it was superb. There's a $50 version in the App Store, and then there's a $500 version that they sell direct. The $50 version has a couple features pulled out, but it's still very useful, and it stamps at the end of your production. It says made with Boinks TV. You can't remove that. But it saves you $450, so I can live with a little ad at the end of my movies for that kind of money. Another of my favorite things, I didn't bring the physical cards today, but Bill Atkinson, who knows who Bill Atkinson is? Bill Atkinson, well, let's see. First, he invented QuickDraw, which is the underlying graphics engine on the Mac. He basically wrote the architecture for presenting graphics on the screen. He wrote HyperCard, if you remember that. Mac Draw and Mac Paint, mostly Mac Draw, but he was a pretty famous guy, and when he retired from Apple, with lots of money in the bank, he became a nature photographer, and he's very, very good. His first app for the iPhone and iPad is called PhotoCard, and here's what it does. So everybody takes lots of pictures on vacation. What do you do with them? You email them to your friends. Okay, great. So they get an email with enclosures. Seen it. This lets you take your best picture And so you can choose either one of his nature photos, and it gives you a couple hundred of them, or your own photos, all right, and create a postcard from them. So there's the front of a postcard. That's a shot I took in Istanbul. You can enhance it, you can write a caption, you can brighten it, you can rotate, you can crop, all the things that you might do to make the picture better. And then you can turn it over, choose a stamp, comes with hundreds of stamps, and then design the card. And then, here's the cool part, send card by mail. It prints a 8.5 by 5.5, which is half of an 8.5 by 11 postcard. So it's an oversized postcard in full color on this great indigo press. It laminates it and then puts your whatever you've done on the back, puts real postage on it, and mails it for you for under $2 a card. I must have sent 80 of those from Europe. Everybody I knew got one. Most of them got the same one. But yes, it's an app, and the app is free. You only pay if you want to send through the mail. And you can also send these as email for free, all you want from the free app. So it's great even if you don't want to pay for postage. But we were in Europe, and at $2, they were cheaper than the ugly postcards we could buy in the tourist traps. And because they were mailed from America, they got there way sooner. If we had dropped postcards into the post box in Greece, we'd have beat them home 2 weeks later. These showed up in 3 days, so people were actually getting cards while we were still in Europe. They are gorgeous. I meant to pack some. I saved some of the ones that I sent my kids and I sent a couple to myself, just so I'd have a record of them. But they're beautiful. They are really impressive, and especially at that price, $2. You can't buy a postcard in a tourist shop for $2 and mail it home to yeah.
Can you only do his nature photos? Or
No, you can do your own.
But what if it's not a photo? What if it's a JPEG of your logo or blah, blah,
If it's in your photo album, you can use it. Yeah, it won't look good when you print it if it's a low resolution JPEG, but basically if you can get it into photos, you can use it here instead of his photos. But it comes with 200 or so of his beautiful photos, so you don't even have to be a good photographer. You find something and say, hey, look at this beautiful flower. You don't have to say, I didn't take the picture of it, and it's not in Greece. Really a great app. It was $5, and at $5 I highly recommended it, and he dropped the price to $0. It used to be $5 with 2 free postcards. Now it's $0 with no free postcards, but you can use it to send email postcards, which look the same. They are front and back, and they look exactly like what you'd mail, except that they are free and they go by email immediately. Apple TV Apple calls it a hobby. They say that we're just getting started with this, but it's one of my favorite Apple devices. What does it do? It's a little black box about that big. It costs $99. You put it by your TV and plug it in with a HDMI cable. All right? It's got Wi-Fi built in, so if your house has got Wi-Fi, that's it, it's connected. What it does is, first of all, it lets me play any media on my computer on my big screen TV through the stereo speakers in the den. So if it's in iTunes or iPhoto, I can watch it in the den with a remote control like this on my big screen TV coming out of my sound system with no wires. That alone is worth the price of admission to me. Because I listen to music in the den. If nothing else, I'm using it for music. But I can also, I have hundreds of movies and TV shows. I can see any of them with the click of a remote control in my den. Starting next Friday, you'll be able to get one that supports 1080p, full HD resolution. The current one does 720, which is, pretty good. The stuff that I've rented from Apple, like their HD movies, they don't look as good as Blu-ray, but they look better than DVDs. So Apple TV, it's got a great interface, really easy to use. So this is what the interface looks like. You've got your movies, your TV shows you can rent from Apple. Most movies are under $5 for 24 hours and 1 minute. TV shows are $1.99 for the most part, or a whole season for $20 or $30. Music, of course, you buy from iTunes or whatever's in your iTunes library you can listen to. In the internet category, I think I've got a slide in the internet category. Well, there's renting movies, or looking at movies. You can rent or buy from Apple. It does Netflix, Hulu, a couple other internet content providers. So I can watch my Netflix queue on my big screen TV without another device. For $99, it's really one of the better AV pieces in that setup out there. You know, all the other stuff was really expensive and didn't give me as much joy. This makes, I have 12,000 songs, I have hundreds of TV shows and movies, and all of a sudden when I got Apple TV, I don't have to watch all that or listen to it all in my room, my little office. You know, now I can share it with my friends, and it just works great.
Will it work as well with DSL?
As long as your wireless network is fairly robust. If you've got, here's the thing, it'll download stuff and buffer it, and it won't start the movie until it's got enough downloaded that there won't be hiccuping. How long that takes depends on how good your service is. With I have the top tier of Time Warner, which is 25 megabits per second download speed. When I rent or buy a movie, I can start watching in 30 seconds. You know, it's ready to watch in 30 seconds because I've got a really fast wireless. If your wireless is a little slower, it'll take a little longer before stuff starts, but it works. It even works on really slow networks, but it's frustrating to say I'm going to watch a movie and then I have to wait 5 minutes for. All right, well, let's go make popcorn while it streams in.
Does the Apple TV also have a wired connector? Can you put Ethernet into it?
No, it doesn't. It's wireless only. It does have an optical audio cable output in case you want to do that, which is 5 channel.
When you're streaming a movie from Netflix, if you have buffering, is that tied to your internet connection? What's going on?
It depends on, what buffering is it requires X amount of bandwidth to show a movie in real time, for it to stream in and not hiccup. And if your wireless network doesn't have that much bandwidth, then it buffers. And what that means is it'll save some up before it lets you watch, and then hopefully stay ahead of you. But the slower the network is, the more buffering you're going to see.
So that you are affected then by whatever's going on in your neighborhood at any given time?
If you're on cable, probably, because cable is a shared connection. So like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to see more buffering than at 6 in the morning. Or Saturday night when everybody's downloading movies, it's going to be worse. But it's also how fast your internet is in the house. So in my house, I have one wireless network, and everybody I know has an iPhone, and a lot of them have iPads. We all have laptops. At any given moment, there's 7 or 8 devices on my wireless network. So, you know, they're all using that same store bandwidth. So I bought a second wireless router, and I set up a second wireless network that nobody knows about but me. So I get half of the bandwidth, and everybody else gets the other half. It costs extra, but that's okay. You know? I'm happy. They're not, though. When they see me downloading movies to my phone, they're going, how come mine's not downloading so fast? Oh, I don't know. Must be congestion.
There is Ethernet on the back of the Apple TV.
There is? On the second one?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Like, yeah, I know I can't see it from here, but I'm Ethernet, 10 base speed.
Thank you. So Apple TV does have an Ethernet port.
You said that. I was like,
It does. It does. My bad. I thought, oh, you know what? It's the Roku that's wireless only. It's the same shape. It's a little black box, but it's wireless only. Yeah. I'm sorry.
One of the things that the Apple TV likes is to have air around it, you cool it, doesn't like to be locked up.
Yes. That's a good suggestion. Don't put it in the cabinet with your AV components, because it doesn't have a fan and it does generate a lot of heat. Mine's sitting right on the lip of the table with the TV. Also, it has to be line of sight to your little remote. So you want to put it somewhere where you can see it. The iPod Nano. So the 6th generation iPod Nano, the square one, came out like 2 years ago. And soon thereafter, I started seeing these watch bands for it. And I thought, what a great idea that you can wear your iPod with your music or your workout music, whatever, on your wrist. I thought that was great. But it had a problem. The big problem was there was only one ugly watch face, and you had to touch the wake up button to see what time it was. So if you just looked at it, it didn't light up. So you had to physically touch it to see what time it was. So the next generation came out last year, right before Christmas, and of course, they added some watch faces, and I got really excited. I thought, oh, this is awesome, look at, and I'm gonna show you some of the watch faces in a second, but it comes in all those colors, right? And they're fairly inexpensive. I think they're, what do they start at, $100 maybe? So, and the new ones have a pedometer built in. They don't require, the old ones used to require you to buy special shoes with Bluetooth sensors in them. These don't require anything, and you don't pair them with anything. They just have a pedometer, and it's pretty accurate. My wife uses it a lot, and it does measure your steps. We've actually walked around counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and at the end, we were pretty close to what the machine counted. So it's pretty accurate, doesn't require any additional hardware. And then here's some of the watch faces. They're really pretty cool. And there's some elegant ones, and some digital ones. So I really like it. Sadly, before I get on to this, sadly, you still have to touch the button to see what time it is, which is why I don't wear it anymore, because I've always got something in this hand. And touching the button with your nose looks so dorky to see what time it is. So my wife does wear it, though. She wears it whenever she goes out to exercise or work in the yard or anything. Jawbones, this company in California, they were invented to create audio enhancing technology to be used in helicopters in the Army and in high noise outdoor situations where people needed to be able to hear and speak. Military, exactly. They were a military contractor, and they invented this noise assassin technology, which is kind of like it's what Bose would like to be doing with the Quiet Comfort headphones. It cancels out outside noise, but it works through the microphone so that people you're talking to on your little Bluetooth headset, you sound great. I have a convertible. And so it's a terrible problem for me if I want to use the phone and drive around with the top down. Something's got to be done. I can't talk on the phone. It's way too loud and dangerous. But most headsets don't work in a convertible, especially not on the highway. The Jawbone's the only one I found that consistently, people tell me, you're in the car with your top down? You sound great. I can actually hear you. And I'll be driving down I-35 doing 70 with my earphone, and I can hear them, and they can hear me, with lots of wind noise and cars honking. And to them, it sounds fairly quiet. I've had people record their end for me so I could hear how I sounded. And even when I'm on the highway with wind noise and the top down, people can hear me fine. It enables me to use my phone in the car where I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Now, I suspect Plantronics and Jabra and a couple others, Blue Ant, are catching up to this technology now, but they've come out with a new version every year, and each year it's gotten a little better. And each year I test a few, and it's the only one that consistently has worked in my car to the point where I buy one every year. When I come out with a new one, I end up, after testing a bunch of them, buying a Jawbone. They're not cheap. The current one's called the Era, and it's $129. But you get what you pay for. It really is a wonderful, wonderful Bluetooth headset that cancels noise and will let you use your phone and do Bluetooth, wireless, hands-free headset talking in almost any situation, no matter how noisy. And then last year they came out with a new product. Oh, the other thing I like is It's the only headset I've ever seen that has a battery indicator in the iPhone. A little battery indicator there tells you how much battery is left in your headset, which is clever and very useful. Now, they came out with something new last year, the Jambox. It's a little Bluetooth speaker and speakerphone, but mostly just for listening to music. I travel a lot, and in my hotel rooms, I like to listen to music. I don't like wearing headphones in a hotel room. I don't like wearing headphones really very much at all, because I feel like I'm blocking out the world, and I really hate wearing them in a room when there's other people around. You know? So a speaker lets me listen to music in the hotel room without having to put on my headphones. And I've been looking for something that's small, easy to pack, not terrifically expensive, easy to operate, sounds good. And the Jawbone Jambox, which, let's see if we got a picture of it with something. So you can't really see the size, and I forgot to pack mine, but it's pretty small. There you go. It's pretty small. They're $200, but once you've listened to one, you'll say, oh, well, I understand why it's $200. I've listened to $100 Bluetooth speakers and $60 Bluetooth speakers, and they work, but they sound like crap. This little box sounds amazing. What they've done is, the whole bottom is a rechargeable battery. They've used their technology to turn it into a bass transducer. So that whole bottom surface becomes a passive radiator for low frequencies. So you put it on a desk or anything solid, and all of a sudden you hear real bass coming out. I mean, it's just, it's hard to believe how good it is in a small room. In a room this size, it would be loud enough to use as a PA in here. And for music or movies in a hotel room, it's perfect. It's just great. You can plug in a cable if you want. You don't have to use Bluetooth if you're trying to conserve battery. But it's just simple to use, sounds great, and small enough that you can carry it in your backpack with your laptop without taking up much more space. It probably takes up about the same space as the power charger. So I have probably 24 portable speakers at home, and that's the one I travel with every time. Wonderful. Zero chroma cases. They make them for the iPhone and the iPad. This is my favorite case of all time. I get about 3 cases a week. I do. They just, that's one of those things that once you've reviewed a few, you get on the list for all the manufacturers, and they send you their new stuff every time. Well, it's all the same. It's like all of the rubberized cases are just rubberized cases. Some of them are prettier than others, but they don't have special features, most of them. This one's called Zero Chroma, and here's why I like it. Number one, it's thin. It doesn't add a lot of bulk to my phone, but it gives me good protection, and the top on the screen size is raised a little bit above the screen, so if you did drop it that way, there's some protection for the screen, so the screen doesn't hit first. Some of these cases are flush on this side, which means if you dropped it face down, the glass would hit. This has got some protection, not the best in the world, but it's very thin and it fits in the pocket easily. But the killer feature is the kickstand on the back, which just folds out like that. I've got more pictures I'll show you in a minute, but it rotates 360 degrees, so you can stand your phone up that way, or this way, or this way, or that way, or that way, straight up or down at an angle. Well, what I found is that when I'm not using my phone, I generally would put it somewhere touching something so I could see it. So if it rang, I would see who was calling. So, I used to lay my phone on my desk like that, lean it against something. Now, I just put it down like that. And there you go. Now when it rings, it lights up and I can see it. Works in any position, it's great on airplanes, great anytime. It's also really surprisingly good for walking around. I use it as a kind of a grip. So if I'm playing a game, I'll open it up and put it between my fingers. That way, When I get really frantic, I'm not going to drop the phone, you know? So, but mostly great for just sitting in front of you on a tray table or on your desk. And they're I think the iPhone case is $30 or $35, might be $40, and the iPad's $50. But they're well made. This one has been on this phone for 2 years.
Who makes that?
Zero Chroma.
Zero Chroma.
Yes. And so of all the ones I've tested, this is the one that, you know, after I test something else, I find myself coming back to this one. And the only other thing that's come close is this setup from Newer Technologies. Now this is a little bit more of a system, because it comes with a heavily weighted base, the stand, this is the connector, and then this black case, which this screws into. It also comes with a handle. There's the handle. So you just twist one or the other on. So it's got a handle and a stand. It's really great around the house. It's not so great for me when I travel. When I travel, I put the Zero Chroma on, but around the house, this setup, which was $40 for the whole thing, the case and both stands, the handle stand and the heavy desk stand. I really like the heavy desk stand. I use it in the kitchen for cooking. It's easy to put somewhere and get it right at the right angle for me. I like it on the coffee table when I'm watching TV and I'm going to look something up in Internet Movie Database. I know, you know, it's sitting right there looking at me. It's also good for when I'm doing AirPlay, when I'm showing stuff on the big screen TV, to put it on the coffee table, not have to hold it the whole time. I can start a slideshow and you can watch it on the little screen or the big screen. So this thing was $40 for all three pieces. Also, the handle flips up like that, so in my kitchen I can hang it from a knob when I'm cooking, which turns out to be very convenient. If you've got a knob at eye level, that's exactly where you want your recipe. So that's a really versatile little thing. Oh, and this is going to seem silly in Texas, but my kid, who goes to school in Kansas, assures me these are the coolest thing ever. These are New Touch gloves. What's so special about them? Well, what's special about them is, watch this. Now, my son is at the University of Kansas, and so he's wearing gloves all the time when he's outside, and his biggest complaint is, I can't use my iPhone with my gloves on. So, you know, because the iPhone requires capacitance, which means it needs skin or something like it. If you're wearing a regular glove and you try to slide the thing, nothing happens. But with this glove, it has little capacitive things on each fingertip. Now, I bought some for my kid earlier last year from Isotoner at Macy's for $40. And they only had it on 2 fingers. And they weren't very good. They weren't as good capacitance things as the ones on all 10 of these fingers. These are only like $20. So if you know someone that uses a iDevice in cold weather somewhere, that makes an awesome, awesome gift.
You have a room that has all that stuff in it?
Yeah, my nest is empty. My kids are both off to school and stuff. So their bedrooms have become storage. My son said, I'm coming home for spring break. I said, you can't. I rented your room out to a foreign exchange student. No, it's actually filled with Mac stuff. And last but not least, anybody play guitar? Where's Drew? Oh, he'd have loved this. So what this is, you know, if you're an electric guitarist, you play, and you see electric guitarists have something on the floor, and they'll occasionally step on it, and it'll change what the sound of what they're playing. There it is. This is an iPad in a big metal box with a pedal and all these little foot switches. It contains 72 different stomp boxes, 72 different sounds, plus 28 amplifiers, 35 speaker cabinets, and the ability to create a preset with any combination of all of these things that you want, and then enable it by stepping on one of these, or using that to change the effect or the volume, all programmed in your iPad. So rather than having 7 things that I string together on the stage, each with a battery or a power supply, I have this one thing, and really all the brains are in the iPad. I used it, I have a band, well, I have a band. I play in a band. We play one time a year at Macworld Expo, and I used this for our last gig. And it was awesome. It was everything I've always wanted in my guitar, you know, my floor setup, without any of the hassle.
How much is it?
It's $4.99 without the iPad. They have a $150 version called iStomp that is just a single pedal. And it doesn't come with all of the pedals. They're a la carte. So it comes with a couple, and then you can buy additional effects for that for like between $1 and $10 each. Yeah. You know, so you save on the hardware up front, $4.99 versus $149. But the $4.99 one, the app is free, and it has hundreds of combinations rather than buying them one at a time a la carte. This is called the IPV10, and the other little one that I don't have a picture of is called the iStomp. If you're a guitarist, check them out. They have them at Guitar Center.
Just be sure not to step on your iPad.
You can. The top there is metal. What's hanging up here? This is a metal, like cast metal frame, and the whole bottom is cast metal. So once you put your iPad in and close it, your iPad is recessed down beneath heavy metal all around it. Unless you drop something right on the glass of it, you're not going to hurt it. You can step on it, and, you know, you can kick it. It's not going to go anywhere. And this thing weighs about 30 pounds. It's very, or 20 pounds. It's very solid. When they ask for it back, which they haven't yet, but when they do, if they do, I'm going to have to buy one because it really is that good if you're a guitarist. All right, so how are we doing on time? We're good? All right, so here's the state of the Apple portion that I used to do first, but I put it at the end so that I could make sure I got through all the cool stuff. All right, so here, what's Apple been up to lately? Let's take a look. This is basically last year. Are you getting all that? Okay. You getting all that? And I forgot to put on new iPad. Apple's been having a pretty good time the last year or two, last 5 years or so. Let's take a look at the stock. It's way higher. This is like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I did this on February 16th for CapMac, the Austin user group, and I didn't update the graphs just because it's a lot of trouble. And the fact is the story doesn't change, just the last price changes. But watch this. So let me come over here to my notes so I can tell you what you're going to see next. All right, so next up, I think you'll agree that Apple looks like it's doing pretty good, but everything is relative. So let's look at what they look like vis-a-vis the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the NASDAQ.
They are the NASDAQ practically.
Yeah. So there they are. You can see NASDAQ is orange, Dow Jones is red. I think Apple outperformed everybody there. Let's see what else. Apple's still blue. Now we're going to track them against Dell. Well, Dell looks like it's not doing too badly. It's way below Apple, but you know they're actually having a pretty good time of it. So let's add Microsoft. Microsoft's red. Oh, Microsoft isn't doing so good. Microsoft, you know, everybody caught a little hit towards the end of the year and started inching back up, but the whole market did. All right, so there's Microsoft in red, and let's throw in Compaq. Oh, I mean HP. I mean whatever they're called. They're green. They didn't even get that bump at the end of the year when everyone else did. They're really sucking But, you know, who's on top? Who's on top? Who's your mama, right? So I think we can agree that Apple's doing pretty darn well. How well? I'm glad you asked, because I read an article by some guy named Adam Nash the other day. This is what that article looked like. And basically, his premise is this. In 2009, the Dow Jones Industrial Averages kicked out 4 old stocks and added 4 new stocks. They do that every few years to balance it and make it more reflective of the current industry. And at that time, they added Cisco, the networking and routing company, which has been doing very well. But if they had used Apple in place of Cisco, the Dow Jones index today would be at 14,926, which is roughly 800 points higher than the previous all-time high of all time ever. And so this is all some of the backing up research, but check it out. That's the difference. So with Cisco, without Cisco, with Apple instead. So one little switch to the Dow Jones index, and instead of saying the markets are doing pretty well, you'd be hearing on the news, the market broke a record again today when the Dow Jones inched over, and this would have happened all year. All you needed was for the Dow Jones people to have said Apple instead of Cisco. 5 letters. Made a lot of difference. So again, this kind of shows you that Apple is outperforming just about everything out there.
They're complaining now because Apple is distorting the NASDAQ. Okay?
Wouldn't it be worse if they were part of the average? But yes, Apple does have a tendency, if you look at Apple stock vis-a-vis other stocks, to make whatever you're comparing it to look bad.
Are you allowed to buy stocks?
I think I am, but I wouldn't. The thing is, the Houston Chronicle probably has some kind of policy about it, but I don't work there. You know, I'm a contractor. So I've never had to sign anything or say that I don't. But as a matter of course, I don't buy tech stocks that I write about. I might buy Cisco because they don't make consumer stuff. I don't have any, but I might. But I don't buy Adobe and I don't buy Apple and Microsoft because I'm going to write about them. And not that I believe anything I could write could affect Apple stock by even a quarter of a point. I couldn't. I don't have that kind of juice. Walt Mossberg maybe, David Pogue maybe, not me. But I just think it would be wrong for me to hold Apple stock because I generally say nice things about them, and it could be said I'm saying nice things to influence the stock price so I can make money on the back end, which, you know, I wouldn't do. But for that reason, I don't buy any of the stocks of anybody that I might write about.
I read this morning that Texas is offering Apple $21 million, and they're going to put in a $300 million campus around Austin.
They sure are. I read it in the paper this morning. Well, we're still fighting. We're competing against Phoenix. Phoenix has some other package on the table. I believe Apple will choose Austin because they've already got about 3,000 people in Austin in a small, it's not their own campus, but they've got a building. And I think that they're very happy in Austin. I don't know what they are in Phoenix, but we offered, apparently the state and the city offered them pretty good incentives. It was on the front page of today's Statesman, worded as if they're coming. But if you read the fine print, they still haven't announced that they aren't going to Phoenix. But I think they will, and I think it's good for Austin.
But it sounded like all low-tech jobs. It sounded like all low-tech jobs.
Yeah, it is. There's no engineering or any of the cool stuff. It's customer service and sales and educational.
Telephone support.
Telephone support. But at least your guy doesn't say, hello, my name is Barry. I called somewhere and the guy tried to convince me his name was Steve.
Yeah.
No, but what's your real name? Steve. Where are you from, Steve? California.
Yeah, right.
Where are you right now? I'm afraid I can't tell you. I like Bollywood. See any good movies? Apple pretty much has all of their English-speaking support in America with English-speaking people as their first language, which is nice. I mean, it costs them more. They could outsource it to offshore somewhere, like so many tech companies do. But Apple chooses not to. They invest a little bit more money. They keep their own staff that's not contracted out. They basically do all their support. I think all of it's in Austin now. They've got hundreds of people working. Anyway, I think they do a pretty good job. I call pretty often, anonymously. I don't say, hey, this is Bob LevItus from the Houston Chronicle and Mac Observer, and if you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to write something nasty about your ass. I don't do that. I generally don't give them any information until I have to, and then if I can disguise it, if I can just say, yeah, my name, I have a bunch of aliases for email. Most of which I can't say in public, but I use them for things like that. And they don't know they're talking to a reporter. And I think Apple really does a good job of support. I think that their people know what they're talking about. You're less likely to have somebody give you really bad advice on the phone. Like there's an old joke about Microsoft. Guys flying in on a plane and anyway, the gist of the joke is Microsoft takes over the control tower and he says, where am I? And they say, you're in an airplane. And he says, oh, well then I knew I was in Microsoft territory because the answer tech support gave me was 100% correct and 100% worthless. And that's the kind of support you get from some companies is, you know, they have a book and they look stuff up, and if they looked up the right thing, they probably read you the right answer, but they don't know anything. Apple trains these people. Go into an Apple store and talk to a genius. They don't make that stuff up. These guys pass a very rigorous test, and they live and breathe this stuff, and that's the same way with their phone support people. So, you know, you get what you pay for. You know, you buy a bargain basement computer, it's going to come with bargain basement support. You can always call me. I do tech support. Okay, so quarterly fund. Well, there's no need to even read that. Let me just summarize. Every quarter was better than any quarter ever before of that year. Every first quarter ever, this last one was better. You know. Sadly, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns last year. We lost Steve Jobs, and that was a very sad thing. He was 56 years old when he passed away, and a lot of people have asked me what happens to Apple now. Because if you've been following the story since Steve came back in the year, 2000, it's been the Steve show over there. You know, everything has been attributed to Steve. Steve invented the iPhone. Steve invented the iPod. Steve invented the iMac. You know, these were all Steve initiatives. And so with Steve gone, what's going to happen to Apple? And I'll tell you what I think. First of all, I think Steve has known for a couple of years, had known for at least a couple of years that there was a chance he was not going to be around for long. And I think that he planned for succession very carefully by building a very deep bench. Now, I know a lot of the people that sit in the next tier down from Steve, and I know a lot of the people that work for those people. And they just hire the best and the brightest at Apple. They hire very smart people. And they're very smart people who don't kowtow to Steve. Steve wouldn't want you if you were a yes man. He'd want you to argue with him, even though he'll fire you for disagreeing. He'll want you to argue, and he wants you to have an opinion, and so he's got a very, very strong team in place now. There's only been really one loss since he's left, and that was Ron Johnson, the guy that handled retail, who I can't blame for leaving. He went to be the president of JCPenney, which if you're a retail guy, the opportunity to save JCPenney is pretty major. You know, it's like he's never going to be the CEO of Apple, the guy that was running the retail stores. But he's a retail guy. He came from the Gap, and he got this opportunity to go be the president of JCPenney. And if you've seen JCPenney's new advertising, they're really turning into a different kind of store, and it's going to be interesting to see how he does with that. But the rest of Steve's team is still in place with their teams in place. So what I think is going to happen is for the next 3 years, you're not even going to notice that Steve's gone, other than the fact that he's not there and he doesn't do the presentations when they come out with new products. But the roadmap and what you're going to see for the next 2 or 3 years is all stuff that is in the Steve plan. You know, 3 to 5 years out, you're going to run out of Steve, and then what? And the answer is no idea. You know, if Apple is able to keep the smart people and they don't have a brain drain when everybody cashes in their stock options and leaves, if they can keep the good people inventing good stuff, Apple could keep this up for a really long time without Steve. I'm not sure that Steve is integral to Apple doing cool stuff, but that remains to be seen. Because they're a public company, they have a couple of bad quarters. The public will be demanding that they get rid of their management. And the last time that happened, you might remember, there was Gil Amelio, who just about sunk Apple. This was a turnaround specialist from a semiconductor company. On the one hand, he allowed cloning, which let me work for power computing and be an evangelist, which was one of my dreams, was to be working for a company and called the Evangelist. My job title.
Siri will call you that.
Yes, she'll call me anything I want. But that's because she's trainable. But basically, the last time the shareholders called for blood, they got a bloodbath is what they got. And Apple almost died because they brought in suits that didn't get Apple, and they started coming out with crap. How many of you remember 38 models of Performa that were exactly the same? Well, what's the difference between those two? That's a V and that's a VX. Oh, what does that mean? I don't know. They look the same. They have the same spec. Oh, this one has one more pin on the audio out. Oh, okay. And it's $30 more than that. They had all these overlapping models that looked the same and performed the same, and they didn't have any differences in specifications, and you just didn't know what to buy. Apple has really streamlined the product line now. They basically have, what? 4 lines of Mac. They have the mini line, they have the notebook line, they have the desktop line, the iMac, and they have the Tower, the Mac Pro. And that's it. And there's not really more than 1 or 2 pieces in each of those categories and a couple of configurations, and that's the whole computer product line, rather than 38 different Performa models under $1,000. It was crazy. People didn't know what to do. The other thing is Apple's laser focused. Apple is only in a few things on purpose. They're not in speakers, they're not in printers, they're not in things where they can't do something unique and different. They try to focus on the things where they can make a big difference, like cellular phone. You know, before the iPhone, they all sucked. The smartphones and the stupid phones were all stupid. The iPhone changed the world, I mean, for handheld devices. The iPad also. And so they tend to not chase the marginal pieces of business, which lets them be very focused on the few pieces of business that they care about, and the few pieces that are important, like Wi-Fi. You know, if Apple hadn't made the Airport Extreme, and if they hadn't made the time machine, time capsule, things like that, those things wouldn't happen. You'd have to buy a Netgear router, and you'd have to figure out how to configure it, which wouldn't be fun. Apple wants you to have a great experience with Wi-Fi. So if you haven't noticed, you basically plug in whatever gives you your internet at home to the back of the Apple router and turn it on, and it works. And that's it. There's no configuring. You don't have to know what any of that NAT or DHCP. You don't know anything. You plug it in, you plug in a cable, it works. Well, they're the only ones that do that. You know, some of the other ones are getting closer now, but Apple has made all this stuff that used to require a guy to come over, zero config, especially things like Wi-Fi. So now what with Apple, I think for the next 3 years, it's the same as it would have been if Steve were still around. Beyond that, we'll see. I think it all depends on how the stock does and what the public wants from Apple. If Apple has some bad quarters and the public starts saying management change, who knows? But chances are it won't be good. You know, if we get to that, man, it's so depressing to think about because I can't just say, well, I'll just switch to Windows.
Do you think the Mac Pro is going to survive?
Yeah, I do. I think Apple needs a powerhouse computer that's got multi-processors and bays for multiple storage devices and, you know, the big heavy horsepower. I do think that the next one will be much smaller. You know, I think that they've learned how to make more efficient packages. But I think Apple will always sell a powerhouse machine like that. I think that they need to hold that down if they want to keep the professional video and audio communities, and they do, because that's a trickle-down thing. It's like some of the magic that Apple has learned from things like Final Cut Pro and Logic have trickled down to the consumer in iPhoto and iMovie and GarageBand. And so, you know, having that high-end stuff, I think, is very important to Apple, even if it's not their most profitable market. So I expect the Mac Pro will stick around. It's a low-volume thing. I don't think it'll ever be a big deal again. But they'll keep one model in a few different configs. It's been about 2 years now, so I would say we're due, maybe this summer, for a refresh. Certainly they'll upgrade the processors and RAM and everything else. But I think, yeah, Thunderbolt, yeah, that's the last missing piece. And everything else has it now, so you got to figure there'll be a new Mac Pro. Yes?
What do you see in audio visual as far as them coming in television, something like that?
You know, some days I think that they would do it because you didn't think they would make a phone, did you? You know, but other days I think, you know, I don't know that Apple wants to get into shipping 90-pound boxes that, you know, require setup, and it really would be a different selling commitment. They'd have to really be doing something unique to do that and be successful with it and charge the price they're going to charge and not get killed. So I don't know. Some days I think they will, and some days I think, well, they'll just do it in a box like the Apple TV for $100 because most people aren't going to go get rid of their TV just so they can get this new experience. That said, I wouldn't be surprised this year before Christmas if Apple came out with a TV.
And a Retina TV would look awful good, wouldn't it?
When is the new iPhone going to come?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. No, I don't know. I am, you know, people think, oh, well, you're Bob LevItus. Apple must tell you stuff. No, I'm the last person they tell. I am the last person. I find out when they send out the invitation to the event when they're announcing it. Swear to God, they don't want people like me to know for sure that they're coming out with a new iPhone on June 11th or whatever, because if I do that, then you're not going to buy the current iPhone. So they keep it a secret as long as they can, especially from me.
Journalists.
That said, I think this summer at the Worldwide Developer Conference would be a good bet because they've done it that time every year. You know, I mean, I think that you can prognosticate that. I am not saying that from any inside knowledge or any hint from anything or anybody, other than that's how they did it last year and the year before.
The other thing I was going to say is I've got a neighbor whose daughter works for Apple in Austin, and she's a technical writer, and they were called into a meeting, and that's when Steve Jobs pulled out the MacBook Air. And she said, the boss looked over at her and said, I guess we're going to start writing technical names.
That is how it works. You know, I've talked to PR people who have said, I don't know what the name of it will be. A week before, you know, is it going to be iPad 3? Can I call it that? They didn't know. The PR people weren't told that the new name was the new iPad until the night before. Before that, it had a code name internally. They also don't know what the ship date is until like a week before, because they don't want anybody to know the ship date, because as soon as you know the ship date, sales of the existing product die. So Apple wants to postpone that as long as possible. They generally make an announcement, and by a week from Friday, they're shipping. And that's what they try to do so they don't lose that. You know, if they had announced this and it had been 3 months, all the iPads in the channel would sit, because nobody would want to buy them, and Apple would have to eat the returns. And they did a smart thing. They're going to sell those for $3.99 now. They'll sell out all the inventory. And then, now that those components are cheap, and they got an assembly line running, they'll make money on those at $3.99. So it turns out to be kind of a moot point this time, but mostly they don't want any gap between the announcement and shipping. Yes?
I find it difficult to understand Apple's thinking when they announce a new product, and if you look at the fine print, it says, and it supports Windows, but it won't support my G5 Mac. They don't support themselves. Why? Sorry for the hard question.
No, it's not a hard question. It's one that's hard to answer, because the answer is, at some point, Apple has to look at legacy products and say, you know, we can't go forward with this if we continue to support this, because it's too old, it doesn't have the capacity to do these things. And they wait as long as they can. The PowerPC chip really got probably 5 more years than it deserved, because Apple was preserving their legacy products and kept coming out with versions of the OS that would run on old iron. And it worked pretty well for a long time, but you know, you can't run Windows 3.0 on today's hardware. There's versions of Windows that are no longer supported. It's a fact of technology. At some point, you can't be backwards compatible with everything and move forward. You can't improve if you've got to support all the old technology, old chips, old wireless standards. And so at some point, they have to say, all right, this is going to piss off some of our customers, but we're just going to not be able to do PowerPC anymore. And that was Lion. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are still using Snow Leopard because they don't have the right equipment to run Lion, or there's an app that won't run under Lion, like Quicken. And so it's always hard, but I think Apple does a better job than many companies in not deprecating older hardware for as long as they can hold out. And I think that they've managed to, all of the iPhones still work, they still get operating system updates. I wouldn't want to run an original iPhone with iOS 5, it's too slow, but you could, it'll install, and the features work. So, you know, and all the time, there's really no obsolete iPhone hardware. Maybe the first generation now would be considered obsolete. But mostly you can run anything on anything. There's their wireless stuff. I mean, I have stuff that's 10 years old that still plugs in and works. So they try, but at some point, and this is in all technology, at some point, the old stuff gets left behind. They have to make the break and say, we can't support that anymore. We're going to have to say at this time. And also, Apple gave us a lot of warning. You know, Apple basically said 2 years ago, it's the end of life for what was it? Well, Apple Works is one thing, but carbon, right? The carbon environment going away. But they told us 2 or 3 years ago.
.Mac.
Yes.
June?
Yes. So iCloud takes over most of the things. There's a few that are missing, one of which is those beautiful galleries, mobile me galleries, which I'm going to miss. But, you know, if they don't replace them, which they still could, they haven't said that they're not going to, they just aren't there yet. If they did, you know, they've built in integration in iPhoto and in Aperture for Flickr and a couple other photo sharing sites, and I could live with that. I mean, if I had to, I'm okay with that.
Do you have to be running Lion to use cloud?
Yes.
Not totally. You can use it, many of the features will run in Snow Leopard, but for full usage, you need to be in Lion.
So if you've got like 3 Macs, one's online, the other 2 aren't, for things like Quicken, should you wait to go up to the cloud until?
I would wait as long as possible, because what I think is happening is Apple didn't want to have to be backward compatible to Snow Leopard, but they've seen that they're going to have to, and so There's actually an iCloud system preference pane for Snow Leopard now. It's not, you don't get every feature, but you get most of them. So I would wait as long as possible before you make the decision. It's entirely possible when they flip the switch that they'll say, everything will work.
If you do nothing, will they move you off the .Mac?
If you do nothing, you can keep your email address, but anything stored on your iDisk or in your galleries will disappear in June or July.
They won't just bring it over for you automatically?
If there's a place to bring it over, they will. In other words, like your address book, I think they will preserve, because that's free. You get that anyway. Calendars, I think, come over for free. But I think there's a couple things that are going to go away. One's your photos in your gallery, and the other is your iDisk contents. And there might be other stuff, but for the most part, it's transparent. It's like when I made the switch, my calendars kept syncing the way they used to with my iPhones and stuff. I just had to say I'm now using iCloud instead of Mobile Me Sync.
Are you going to be able to keep the .me address?
Yes, you keep your email address. They're not taking the email addresses away. Those will work even if you don't switch to iCloud. It's just mail. You just need the right server name and password. Yeah.
When Final Cut X came out, a lot of creative professionals said that Apple didn't really care about professional.
They're not saying that anymore.
Well, too much of a niche. I was about to say, what did you think about that?
Well, I thought the same thing when it first came out, because when Final Cut Pro X came out, it's a complete rewrite, and it was necessary for all the reasons I just said. If Apple wants to build the state-of-the-art video editing software, they had to say, we can't build it on the old architecture, which was, 12 years old. And they needed to just basically start from scratch, and they did a great job, but the professional film editors were missing a bunch of features that were necessary to do professional film editing, all of which are now available. And in fact, the one that was the big deal, which was multi-camera editing, that and edit decision lists, which are going out of style, but professionals still use them. Those were the two things that were really a big problem for professional editors. They're both completely resolved. And in fact, the multi-camera editing in Final Cut Pro X is so great that people are switching now that said they'd never switch. And I was one of them, and I was going to do my TV show in Final Cut Pro 7, or Final Cut Pro Studio, because I know how to use it, and it had all the features. But I decided to take another look at Final Cut Pro X, which is the new $299 version. And it just rocks. It's fun to use. It's fast as anything. There's no rendering. Everything is pretty much real time. You can see everything you're doing immediately. You don't have to wait for anything. The interface, once you get used to it, is different, but very, very smooth. And I'm loving it, and I'm hearing from professionals who said, yeah, at first I was really against it, but I'm warming up to it. And I hear more and more people telling me, yep, I'm doing my next project in it, and I'm happy to be doing it. So I think at first it was definitely looked on with derision by the pros, but today I think they're taking a second look, and in a lot of cases, they have no objection anymore. It's like, how can you argue with faster, better, slicker, and cheaper?
Cool, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Does Apple use their own software to build their websites?
No, well, they used to when they had web objects, when that was a real product. I don't know what they use now.
They use Java a lot.
They use a lot of Java. I think a lot of it's all hand-coded. They're certainly not using Dreamweaver. Well, just because they hate Adobe. Not because there's anything wrong with Dreamweaver. I just can't see Apple buying a site license for Dreamweaver. I think they roll it all from scratch.
You'll be able to sync after June, sync your mail and your calendar with
Yes, yes. The iCloud stuff will work for that even now. You can switch now. But I say you should wait as long as possible because A, it's possible you won't have to do anything. That at some point Apple will just automatically do it for you. And second, there's still some pieces missing when you switch, like the Mobile Me galleries. Mine In order for me to use them, I have to use a machine that hasn't been tainted yet with iCloud. And I'm running out of those. I have one hard disk that's still old with no iCloud. But you should get all of the stuff except the iDisk and the galleries. Should either, I didn't do anything. When I switched, I just said turn off MobileMe, turn on iCloud, turn on syncing, and everything went on just the way it had before. So it was very smooth, and most people have said the same thing. Most people have said, yeah, no problem. There are people who said, oh yeah, when I did it, I got duplicates of everything, or things like that. They happen, but I think for the most part, Apple really did a good job of engineering this so that the switch will be painless for you.
What's your personal workday like? What do you have to do versus what you have time to play around?
Good question. My day usually consists of, I have so much writing to do, and I know that in the beginning. Like if I'm working on a book, I know that I've got to have a chapter done every 3 days. So I've got to have a third of a chapter done today. I've got a column due this day, I've got a review due this day. I look at my writing, and that's always the priority. That's got to get done first because that's what brings in the money. Then when that's done, I look at all the fun stuff laying around my office and go, what do I feel like playing with today? I feel like playing with the guitar pedal? Okay, that's what I'll do. Or I feel like surfing the web and looking at new products? I'll do that. Or I've got a new case I want to try. Or
arguing with Siri or something.
I've got I'm going to see what I can get Siri to do for me today. And I basically divide up my time after the essentials are done between the fun stuff. It's like, it would be really easy to say, okay, all I'm going to do then is play games. And then I'll review them and say I was working. But you can only do that so much. So I just try to, throughout the day, I make sure that all the must-do work gets done. And then after that, it's just what I'm in the mood for. Being freelance and self-unemployed is really it's a good thing for me, though, because some days I feel like just going out and sitting in the hot tub. I've got a waterproof case for one of my iPods. I go sit in the hot tub and test apps on a nice day. I can do that. And the thing is, as long as I remember to do the stuff that pays the bills, the rest of my days are basically spent doing whatever feels good to me. Like, I have a list of things I want to do. Like, I want to build a website for BobLevItus.tv. And I work on that when I have time, but it's not bringing in income, so it's not something that's a priority for me. I want to make more TV episodes, more of these segments, so I can eventually get a whole channel or a whole TV show going. And I'm doing that in my spare time. It's like, the other day I had a couple hours free and I did another little segment. I taped it, but I didn't edit it yet. So it's sitting there, it's on my list of things to do, edit, new segment, and I'll get to that. But what I do in the morning is I get up and look at what must be done before I can stop working today and make sure that that gets done. After that, it's all graded. I go to the movies, and I do. That is a Zero Chroma that I just mentioned up there, and I got it. The Apple Store sells them now, but I ordered mine online from their website just because they had a better selection. Yes, sir.
Do you have any update on the hard drive manufacturing process and how they're getting back into production?
No, but prices seem to be coming down a little at a time. I stopped. I was buying 2 terabyte drives last year at the end of the year before the tsunami for like $89. Naked drives, and I have these Voyager docks from Newer Technologies, so I just buy these naked drives and pop them in like they're cartridges. I buy them 2, 3 at a time at $89. They're now $150 or $160. So I've stopped buying them because I have a few extra. I bought them when they were cheap. And I'm holding off buying until the price comes back down to around what it was before the tsunami. And it looks like it's starting to. In fact, I saw some 1.5 terabyte drives under $100 last week. They were special, but even so, you can see it coming down little by little. And by the way, speaking of storage, I tried something pretty cool. I haven't gotten to review it yet, but it's the Momentus XT drive from Seagate. It's a hybrid. It's part solid state drive and mostly a 750 gigabyte, 7200 RPM rotational drive. But it's got 32 gigs of SSD cache. And it's got intelligent handling for this cache, and it takes as much of the operating system as it can, loads it into the cache, which means it runs off solid state, which means my Mac boots from a cold start. On a rotational drive, we're looking at like 3 minutes before I get control of the keyboard. After everything loads and all the apps launch and everything is ready until I'm fully in control, 2 or 3 minutes, the Momentus XT, which is like an SSD, like a solid state drive, it boots in like 40 seconds. It really is a major difference. Launching apps, like I started to time test it. So I time test Microsoft Word. Launched Word before I put the new drive in. It took 33 seconds before I got a blank untitled window. I put in the solid state drive. It opens so fast I can't time the stopwatch. I have a blank document, I blink and it's there. So for not that much more money, I mean, I can't afford to go all solid state here. This thing's got 500 gigs of, my boot disk is 400 gigs of stuff, 350, 400 gigs. And buying an SSD that size is prohibitive, it's too expensive. But this Momentus was just really the perfect compromise. It's not as fast as having all solid state, but it's a lot faster than just a regular rotational drive, and it was only, I think the price is a little over $200 for a 750 gigabyte, 2.5-inch drive for a notebook, which, you know, is really not that much more than just a 750 gig drive, which those are about $100 today. So maybe doubles the price, but you get a semblance of SSD performance for that, and no penalty that I can find. So I really was impressed with it. The problem is it's hard for me to review because I can't benchmark some of this stuff without taking the drive out again and going back. And I didn't realize when I was testing the old drive how much of this stuff wouldn't be testable with the new drive, like even launching Photoshop, which, you know, on my old drive takes 40, 50 seconds, because it loads all its preferences and it's really just kind of slow. The hybrid drive launches Photoshop in like 3 seconds. I can barely time it before it's ready. So it really makes a lot of difference for not a lot more money. So that might be something worth looking into. Yes?
Obviously, due to the age, I'm going to have to be looking towards retiring the G5. My wife uses it primarily for just email and light graphic type stuff. Do you think just an iPad would be good enough to replace that with?
For a lot of people. You know, I find more and more people saying, I can get along without my laptop. I've actually gone out of town a couple times, and I brought my laptop because I'm just a traditionalist, and I just wanted to be sure I had my butt covered in an emergency. But I went to San Francisco for this Apple thing, and except for the part where I needed the laptop to live blog during the event, I didn't use my laptop. I did all my mail on my iPad. I took my iPad with me everywhere I went. And the truth is, I was fine with it, you know, except for serious writing. I wouldn't want to write a book. Well, I couldn't anyway because I have to use Word. That's part of the publishing thing, and there really isn't a good substitute. Pages doesn't cut it for professional publishing. But other than that, when I don't have writing assignments, I'll go out of town with just the iPad and be perfectly happy. Same thing with photo editing. Yes, I like Photoshop on my big machine at home, but I use Photogene 2, and I use Snapseed, and I use now iPhoto, and I can do a lot of the things that I would be doing at home right on my iPad, and boy, that's a lot easier and faster. So I think you might be able to, but there's always going to be an app that only runs on a Mac that you must have.
Do you use a wireless keyboard with your...
I do. I have the Apple wireless keyboard, and I have a couple of those keyboard cases. I tend to only use those like when I'm sitting down in the morning to answer, if I'm out of town in a hotel. I'll hook up the keyboard to answer mail in the morning. But then during the day, I won't even bother with it. I'll type right on the screen for shorter stuff. And of course, in the new one, I'm just going to talk.
Do you have any books that we can buy from you?
I didn't bring any that you can buy, although
Do you have a new book?
on my website you can get all my latest books from Amazon. There's buttons. Everything is discounted like 40%. And the latest book, what is my latest book? iPhone 4S for Dummies would be the most current release. There'll be a new iPad book in a few weeks. I've got a Lion book, Lion for Dummies is out now, and Microsoft Office 2011 for Dummies is out. iPad 2 for Dummies is out. Do you notice a little trend here? All of my books have dummies in the title. And before this, I had a series called Stupid Mac Tricks, Stupid PC.
Oh, yeah.
So all of my books have had either stupid or dummy in the title.
Any update on Apple's manufacturing condition?
Nobody has jumped off Foxconn Tower this week. Apple supposedly is very concerned, and they're inspecting and they're setting up rules and regulations. And the truth is, I think, you know, it's a very tough thing to swallow because that's how it works. And you know, the other guys are using Foxconn also, Dell and Compaq and HP and Motorola. Everybody that you buy electronic devices from is using the same kinds of factories. And if Apple were to move that to the United States, let's say, would you be comfortable paying $6,000 for your iPad? Because if they did, that's the kind of price increase you're looking at. So, you know, we're so in love with our inexpensive technology, and of course the price is still following Moore's Law and going down half each year and getting twice as fast. But if we want that, the price we pay is the human rights of the people who build it. And it's ugly. It's ugly, but you know, the truth is, Apple, I think, is more sensitive to it than most companies. I think Apple does what they can within the confines of having to compete in a global world where everybody's using the same labor. I think Apple does more for the workers and is trying to be a better citizen. But it's still bad. You know, no matter what they find in their fact-finding mission, no matter what they report, conditions are bad, and they're going to stay bad because that's how it works. And unless we're willing to pay way more, we're going to have to accept that it's a tough one. I wrestle with it, you know, because I feel bad, but am I going to stop using Apple products if they don't stop using Foxconn or other cheap labor in China? I don't think so. You know, I have to just write them letters and say, please, you know, do something about working conditions. Yes.
And anyone who thinks, yeah, it's particularly bad with Foxconn, just go look at the garment manufacturing factories. The garment manufacturing really, truly is horrendous. So
yes.
It's an industry, you know, it's an industry-wide thing.
Foxconn, at least they feed them and house them and stuff. I mean,
but, you know,
the rag industry is
the rag is really bad.
If you pull that out of there, then people start. So, yeah.
And that's true too. It's true that these people are making a subsistence. It's ugly, and they work, you know, way more hours, and they don't have repetitive strain injury signs on their walls, things like that. But they are eating and they're working, and you know, I try not to worry about it too much because it would make me crazy.
Okay,
that's a good point.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's the last slide.